Hey folks, Chris Greene here, saxophonist and band leader. About a year ago, the Jazz Institute reached out to me and asked if I would be interested in being a part of one of the several concerts that they were planning on hosting in the year 2020 um, in honor of the great Chicago saxophonist Eddie Harris. Obviously, I jumped right at the chance. I was like, anything having to do with Eddie Harris, I'm totally down to be involved. Um, and so we started to make plans. Made sure my guys were available, and we picked the date. It was supposed to be at Loyola Park on Friday, April 3rd. All was good. And I started thinking, I'm like, you know what? How much do I know about this dude who's A, legend, and B, a Chicago icon? How much do I know about his music? How much do I really know about him? Because I've always admired him as a player. So once I kind of got the gig and realized this is my chance to really help pay tribute to this guy, um, I kind of was like, okay, you know what? If I'm going to do this, let me delve into his deeper category. I mean, everybody knows his hits. Everybody knows Freedom Jazz Dance. Everybody knows Listen Here. Everybody knows Compared to What. Everybody knows Cold Duck Time. All fantastic tunes, all perfectly simple, accessible hit songs. Um, but I wanted to go deeper into his catalog. So we had planned, and we being myself on saxophone, my pianist, Damian Espinoza, bassist Mark Piatti, drummer Steve Corley, and we'd actually brought in my longtime friend and horn section compatriot John Moore Jr. to play to round it out and make us a quintet for the concert. Um, so we were actually going to focus on a lot of the songs that are by Eddie Harris or associated with Eddie Harris that don't get played a lot. We were going to focus on um, That's Why the Future's in Space, or Boogie Woogie Bossa Nova, or Mean Greens, or just things like that, which are typically quirky, funky Eddie Harris compositions of various feels and styles, but at the same time, um, kind of flew under the radar. So the concert was not going to happen, and we were disappointed. But we're going to postpone it till a later time. And then the Jazz Institute reached out to me and was like, we can't obviously do the concert, but is there any way you could do like some kind of tribute to Eddie Harris? So I thought about it. I could have just got out my saxophone and played a few Eddie Harris songs that we were going to do, but I just thought about it, and the wonderful quirkiness of Eddie Harris's songs, especially the ones that we talked about that are kind of under the radar, would kind of get lost without accompaniment. And so what I decided to do, with the help of a great app, I took it upon myself to do kind of a one-man band version of three of the songs that we were going to do for our April 3rd concert, and hope you dig it. So the first song that I attempted to play by myself for this kind of special streaming home concert thing that I'm doing is a theme in search of a movie. For one thing, it's one of two songs that we were planning to play the night of our concert that actually was not written by Eddie Harris. It was on the album. He actually recorded it twice. He recorded it on the Electrifying Eddie Harris album, which he released in 1967. And he also re-recorded it on an album called The Real Electrifying Eddie Harris album that he recorded and released in 1982. The interesting thing about this song is that it was, like I said, it was not written by Eddie Harris. It was actually written by Charles Stepney. And it's really no wonder that he recorded the song twice. It's a really, really beautiful song with a beautiful melody, very interesting chord changes, but just a really accessible, beautiful melody. And like I said, it was so good that he recorded it twice. Another little fun fact, the great Jody Christian, piano player extraordinaire, was the piano player on that session. So here we go. Theme in search of a movie. Here we go. The next song that you're going to hear is 1974 Blues. That can be found on the 1969 album Silver Cycles. Eddie Harris did write this song. If you know anything about my band, the Chris Greene Quartet, you know that we definitely are not afraid of the funk. We like the funk. We incorporate the funk in what we do. We embrace the funk. There's no other way to say it. But if you also know anything about us, we like funky stuff in weird time signatures. And here I am thinking that I'm doing something new and interesting, playing these funky songs and odd meters, and it turns out that this guy did this great song in 1969. Way long before I even thought about playing a saxophone or writing music. Um, so yeah, it's this great little groove, great accessible groove. Typically soulful soloing on the part of Eddie Harris. Um, uh, Another couple fun facts: Jody Christian is back on piano on this track. Also on electric bass is Monk Montgomery, the brother of the legendary guitar player Wes Montgomery. So here we go, 1974 blues. Hope you enjoy it. All right, last but certainly not least, our final one-man band song that we were going to do for our April 3rd concert is "Come Dance with Me," which can be found on Eddie Harris's album "How Do You Live Like That," which came out in 1976. Um, Interesting little tidbit about that album: it seems to be the last uh, album on his legendary run with Atlantic Records. I believe he was with them for like 11 or 12 years, and that seems to be the period of time that most people remember him for, his famous. I mean, he did great stuff before and he did great stuff after, but most people tend to know his stuff on Atlantic Records, a major record label. Um, so it capped off that 11-year association with Atlantic Records. One thing I liked about it, it's got a really typical Eddie Harris quirkiness, uh, pretty uh, accessible melody with still some interesting quirky rhythmic stuff going on in the melody, and some really interesting chord changes to solo over. And another thing I like about it, he might not have had this in mind when he wrote the song. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. There's no way of knowing. But it kind of reminds me, the original recording kind of reminds me of those great calypso jazz songs that Sonny Rollins kind of tends to be famous for, like St. Thomas or Don't Stop the Carnival. Just it seems to be in that vein, that kind of Caribbean driving, dan- danceable yet cerebral kind of thing going on. So I really enjoyed that song. Um, Another little fun fact on the original track, the great bassist Ron Carter and the great pianist Cedar Walton play on the track on the album. So here we go. Come dance with me. All right, so one little last little piece of information, which I thought was really cool. As I said before, I mean, you really can't get more Chicago than Eddie Harris. Like I said, studied at DuSable High School under the tutelage of Captain Walter Diet, which again, like I said, Clifford Jordan, Von Freeman, Dinah Washington, Nat King Cole, Gene Ammons, just a plethora of great musicians that came through him. One thing I thought, just when I started to really delve into this project and I started to read all interviews that he did and any writing that he did or any article having to do with him, I thought was really interesting. Actually, two little things that I came upon. One was Lenny Pickett, the saxophone player who you may know him from playing with Tower of Power for several years, and now he's the band leader of the Saturday Night Live house band leader. He did an interview in an issue of Wax Poetics magazine, which I thought was really interesting. He said that he was practicing in the park one day as a teenager, and he was working on some stuff, and some gangsters were going to try to chase him out of the park and threatening him with knives and stuff. And, you better get out of here. This is our territory. You better get out of here, or you better play something that we like, or we're gonna do something bad to you. And apparently, one of the only songs that he knew was "Listen Here" by Eddie Harris. And as he put it, that song saved him from getting hurt, severely hurt. So that should tell you the kind of impact, the far-reaching impact that this man had. Another thing, so I've also found this interview. Where was it from? It's an interview from It's a radio interview from 1994, and I think he was on the road with he was on the road with John Scofield, who, interestingly enough, probably the first time I had heard of Eddie Harris was on this record, this John Scofield record that he released in the early 90s called Hand Jive, which was essentially a tribute to the soul jazz that John Scofield had probably grown up listening to. And so he wrote a bunch of songs that sounded like Eddie Harris could have played on them or wrote them back in the day. And so it's a really good album if you haven't checked it out, called Hand Jive by John Scofield. And so he's doing an interview with a radio interview. And one of the things that just blows my mind is that, you know, he's this well-respected musician. He's, you know, got all these butt-kicking etude saxophone technique books out. And he had this long association with this major label record, touring the world as this world-class musician. And yet and still, Chicago is very much in his heart, is very much on his mind, and very much, you know, he's always, you can take the man out of Chicago, but you can't take Chicago out of the man. Just by this one quote, which I thought was really interesting. He says, you can imagine a guy coming up in Birmingham like Sun Ra playing somewhere. People said, hey, they got Monk in New York. We said, yeah, but wait until you come to Chicago and hear Sun Ra. You know what I mean? Chicago had everybody coming. They said, there's a guy that can really play drums, man. Max Roach, man, he's bad. Yeah? Well, wait till you hear Ike Day. And then this guy can play all kinds of bass, man. This guy's terrific playing bass. Ray Brown. And I said, wait till you hear Wilbur Ware. And see, we had guys like that in Chicago. Like you're finally hearing Von Freeman, which was outside years ago, and people said John Coltrane. We said, man, well, you need to hear Von Freeman. And that's the way I thought coming up. And that just blows my mind. It's like, you know, here he is traveling the world, rubbing elbows with, you know, Ron Carter and Stevie Walton and Monk Montgomery. And in the back of his mind are the cats that he knew on the scene here in Chicago. So that just goes to show you what a world-class dude he was. But he was a Chicago guy at heart. So that quote really just stuck with me. So in any event, again, this is Chris Greene. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for listening. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you at the show soon. Hope to see you soon. Take it easy.